All right. So the overarching sort of article name is what's in a name. So, you know, what's obviously in a name. And we can discount it, or we can actually, you know, and a lot of people do, they don't actually realise the importance of what's in a name. But so I'm going to ask you straight up, Louise, can a good brand name make you money?
Yes, millions.
Okay, so tell me what you mean, why?
Well, I didn't realize the power of a name until I renamed an organization called the TDG Group. So when you hear TDG Group, what do you feel? Yeah, it's a terrible name from a wonderful man. So Colin Dombrowski made orthotics, amongst other things, for people who are having lower leg extremity issues. So fancy pants name, description for somebody who's a podiatrist, but with a specialist, with such a specialty, he was doing a PhD in the area. Well, these chains were outperforming him in terms of market share, but they didn't have his expertise. And he was so frustrated. His primary clients were doctors. Referrals came through doctors. So we had a pizza party because I'm Canadian. There was beer. I had done pre-work. I had talked to doctors about what they thought of his existing name because he kind of liked it. He was, you know, he'd sunken costs. He loved this name. After all my preliminary research and this party where his good friends walked around his clinic and his lab, we came up with soul science because he was the only one, soul, doing a PhD in the area, science, because he was a nerd. He would nerd out on all this stuff and he was doing a PhD. So he was one of a kind. Well, that name change alone increased his revenue by 130% in 18 months.
Wow. So that's SOLE, right? So like the sole of your shoe.
The sole of your shoe. Soul science. That was my first, and I named other things too, like plays and books. And, you know, I've always loved words. But when I saw the revenue generation of that name change, I was like, this is a superpower.
Yeah.
And when I renamed organizations, enterprises, I always ask them a year later, well, what's the dollar difference? And I am not bragging when I say this. It is just a fact. I keep doubling people's incomes with better names.
That's amazing. Okay. Well, so conversely,
yeah,
can your brand name lose you money other than as an opportunity cost? Like a bad brand name, other than just being sort of, you know, potentially forgotten because whatever, but can it lose you money?
It can lose you money and opportunity, because what's happened is this guy in 1973 wrote a book called Future Shock. He was a futurist, Alvin Toffler, and he said, we're going to be entering this era called infobesity. Too much information. That was in 1973.
My God, that's amazing.
I know. So now when you look at 543 brands launch a month in the US alone, Coca-Cola has a $2 billion marketing budget. You are competing for attention with the big dogs and every little dog who's entering the marketplace. So your name can lose you money if it doesn't capture attention right away.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Can I just add a little story of my own? When I was thinking of a name for SourceBottle, one of the things, so I was talking to my husband about it, and he said, what about SourceBottle? Right? So he came up with the name. It wasn't me at all, so I have no credit on that level. Hopefully, if you think it's an okay name. But one of the reasons why I thought, yeah, that can work, and the logo really helped sell that concept, was that I had a very limited marketing budget. And so I knew to get cut through, I had to have something that was, and part of the Australian vernacular, SourceBottle is, you know, really commonly used as the word, maybe not so much internationally, but certainly here. And so I think for me, it was like, oh God, I need to cut through with a name that's it has an easy recall, and it kind of has a quirkiness to it, which means people won't forget it the first time they hear of it, like TDK, la, 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 la. So, yeah, so I guess so from my own perspective, I so agree. And that's why I love your expertise that you bring to the table, because you help communicate the value of this. It's so, so important. Okay, now, so what about, and I wonder whether you get this question a lot, when it comes to our online or e-commerce environment, should you take into account search factors? So for example, SourceBottle, like very few people are going to be sort of necessarily looking up, I need a bottle for my sources for a story kind of thing. So in terms of, until brand name is recognized, I get no sort of SEO recognition, or there's no benefits from a search perspective using that as a name. Do you take that into account when you're helping clients with names?
I do, but nobody is going to look up Haagen-Dazs or Rolex if they don't know what it means. So you have to build, the cycle is attention and trust. So you have to build into your name that you are, once you pulled somebody's attention, then you have to give enough value and have enough integrity that they're going to stay there long enough to realize that you're trusted. So yes, in an online community, you need to build content over time that conveys you're worthy of the attention that people are giving you, and your trust will build. So do I want you to call yourself mediaexpert.com? Well, that's going to get some people to a site, but like, you've got such depth and respect in your industry. People are coming because they know you. And if you want something that's SEO friendly, well, that can be a tagline, which is the book I'm working on right now.
Ah, yes, good point.
So, you know, I'm dealing with a client right now, a potential client right now. They're a tech company, and they've been building this fabulous product, and they've struggled with their naming for months. They want to go to market August 1st, and they can't get the name right because they want a .com. So anybody who's listening, what I'll say to you is, if you're thinking of launching something, work on the name early. Figure out who it's for, what's it for, the feeling you want people to have, and start generating the name early. Because when I named an international tech company, I probably generated, that needed to be trademarked in 5 countries, I probably generated up to 1,200 names to get one that would work. And it takes time to get something that's trademarkable now.
Yeah. Really good point. Okay. So is catchy one of the criteria of a good name?
Well, we have got this amazing thing called a brain, and the brain has evolved over millennia, and there's new brain and old brain. So by catchy, what I take you to mean is something catches our attention. And the brain is a filtering out machine. So let's look at the letter F. So the brain is a filtering out machine, and that's to keep us safe and not overwhelmed. And that's the old part of the brain, the back of the head, closer to the spine. It's filtering out all the time. Otherwise, you would go mad. So it filters out everything that we don't think is useful, but it'll focus on something that we think matters to us. And so if you've named something in a way that captures our attention, so like ladies who shoot their lunch captures attention, that's very catchy. When I named a probiotic drink, they're having trouble getting on the market shelves, so I renamed them from like Probucha to Belly Up. Well, Belly Up, good for gut health. Now they're on all the grocery stores, or now in your Calcos, sorry, you don't know all the name of your Caltex. Yeah, and they're in restaurant, like you know, cafes, chains. Well, because it's got a great name, it's got a great feel. So the brain will filter out first. Then you want something that's going to pull focus. Then you want something that makes you feel a certain way, which is the complete opposite of how most people name things. The way they name it, they usually go, "Do I like it?" which is the figuring out part of the brain at the front. So just start with, like, is this worthy of my attention, this name?
Yes,
is it going to grab me in some way? And then will I feel something?
Okay, yes, great. So, okay, what are the key qualities of a great name?
Well, there's a difference between unforgettable and memorable.
Okay.
So Belly Up for a kombucha style drink is unforgettable. Because we've got, you know, like if somebody calls belly up, you're going to belly up, like just, it makes your eyebrows go up. You know, I think of some of the other kombuchas or whatever's, whether it, you know, probiotic and the kombucha, it just, I can't even remember what they're called. So You want to be the ice cream company called Spoon Me, not Beck's ice cream store.
Yeah. Oh, so true. So okay, so you're saying your aim, one of the most important qualities is that it has to be unforgettable, not memorable, unforgettable.
Yeah, that's ideal. I mean, it's hard to do that sometimes, but
Yeah.
that's why you want to generate hundreds, if not thousands of names to find something that's really yum.
And how do you make that determination between something that's, or I suppose, you know, how many people do you talk to, or how do you get out of 1,200 names or options, sort of discern it down to just that one?
Well, there's a couple of layers there. Sometimes what'll happen is, you know, I'm working away and the name will come. Like I've spent so much time with it, just like Hans Wildorf was playing with wooden letters day after day after day. And when he was riding on the second story of a horse-drawn carriage in London, England, that the word Rolex came to him. So like if you play with letters enough and words enough, sometimes the answer just flies in. You're like, oh, thank you, because my meeting with the client's tomorrow. So, you know, like sometimes it really is perspiration for inspiration. But so sometimes I'll just know, and I just hope to heck. Then I look up the trademark offices and I go, okay, has anybody trademarked this word? And have they trademarked it in the countries? I'm like, okay, well, I've got a winner. And can I get the .com? Okay, we can't get the .com, but they're gonna have to pay for it. So they've saved up the money, they can buy it. Okay, great. So yeah, how I know is what I do is I ask the decision makers ahead of time, what criteria are you going to use to choose this name?
Yeah.
Then I train them on neuroscience, that it's more important that it pulls focus than we like it. Because remember, like
that's
Steve
true.
Jobs didn't like the name iMac at first. And yet it's fantastic. Because it totally pulls focus. Because it references the I, the individual, and that's the whole naming technique. Let me pause there, Beck, because you're asking great questions, and I could like word out here, word nerd out if I'm not too careful. So how else can I serve you?
I'm loving this so much. Okay, what did I even say? I'm just
well,
lost.
how do you know it's the right name? And here's
yes, that's right.
And so then I test.
How do you choose it?
So when you get 3 to 5 trademarkable names, then you test it. And, you know, if it's a big agency, like a big firm that works with an agency, they will hire a market research company to test it. But if you're just a small enterprise and this is a baby project and you want to name it well, what you do is you write down the names that you're thinking of. And you can do this online. You have to be very careful because you don't want somebody to steal the name and, you know, go live ahead of you. So you have to figure out who your trusted inner circle is, who shares the persona of those you want to serve. So they are your target market. You present them with the names in different orders. So you avoid primacy and recency effect, them liking the first name or the last name. So different orders, size 16 font, all capitals, and you present them, maybe it's on screen like a Zoom call, and you go, not which one do you like? Because opinion doesn't matter. It's not the judging part of the brain. It's which one grabbed you. And you can, you can record so you get qualitative information or take notes. So you keep numbers, you keep score of these different tests because they're, you know, the words are in different orders, so there's no bias. And then you just see, okay, which name is getting the most numbers, and more importantly, what are they feeling when they say, this one grabbed my eye, and what do you feel? Oh, this one makes me feel happy. This one makes me feel optimistic, or this one made me giggle, or this one made me feel reassured. So you want to pull focus, and then what does it feel like?
Oh, I love it. Okay.
Yeah, it's just like it's so cool.
It's such a great, I agree. But, you know, the thing is, and I'm going to not try to embarrass you, but I might embarrass you at the moment, because I just wanted to just say, you know, so just for people who aren't familiar with you, and I mean, I don't know who they are because they've been hiding under a rock, but if they haven't been familiar with you in the past, the fact that you've sort of just recently become an Australian citizen, and we are so blessed to have your expertise on our shores, so we can get access to this such incredible insight. So Yes, so I'm just so grateful. Anyway.
Oh, thank you. And I'll tell you, like, as I'm talking to these new Australian, I'm talking to 2 Australian startups right now, and look at back, I'm going to do something. Well, I can't, can I angle the screen? I mean, like over there is a recycling bin. See that recycling bin?
Yeah.
So I'm renaming man rags. They're the folks that take the clothes from H&M that are being dropped off for recycling, and they turn them into textiles. They take the clothes that are, they're stopping clothes from going into the landfill.
Yes.
And so I'm renaming them right now. So, and I'm also renaming or naming another Australian tech company. Like, it's so great to use these skills for these people who are launching amazing products like Belly Up and, saving textiles from landfill. Like, it's just it's humbling and awesome.
Oh, well, it's wonderful that you're getting, they're getting your expertise. Tell me, okay, now we talked a while ago about actually talking about some examples of brand names, or we were talking at one stage about Harry and Meghan's new brand when they moved from the Royal Sussex or whatever it was to whatever it is that I've already forgotten.
It's Archerwell.
Yes. Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you about, and I know I'm putting you on the spot here because I didn't actually prep you for this, but
Bring on the royalty. Bring on royalty. I'll go get my crown. I'll curtsy. Go ahead.
Well, so they're one example that I sort of was like, and I'm as a total, novice at this kind of this expertise. I went, I don't like that name. Like, I don't know why I didn't like it. I just didn't like it, and I'm using this very, very primitive.
But I can tell you from a sound perspective why you didn't like it. But keep going, get your question.
Oh, that's really good. Okay, well, so that was one of the examples that I was going to ask you about, because I know that you said it wasn't such a great name necessarily, their new name, which I can't even remember right now, but and I sort of wanted to talk about that and a few others that you think aren't great brand names, and why. Tell me why. Why is that not? Do I not like it, or it's not catchy, or it's not memorable?
My mother's British. I was taken out of high school for the Queen's, the 20th Jubilee in the 70s. Like, so the royal family, my family are not monarchists, but there's an appreciation for history. And certainly Queen Elizabeth has been, a stalwart role model of service. So now we've got a spare heir who has behaved badly at different times in his history and is now a father and a husband, well, a husband first and then a father, and they wanted to break out on their own and have done it very badly. Okay, let's just say that they've done it badly. I totally agree. So they've been badly advised. So they were badly advised on the name. And then, so ladies and gentlemen, and however you identify, if you're going to go live, don't tell anybody until you've locked down the trademarks and you've locked down the URLs and you've locked down all the social media, because people just go, oh, they're going to call it that. Well, I'm going to grab this. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to grab that. It was a SHITSHOW. So that name, Archerwell, is hard on the mouth.
Right.
So arch, we like well feels good in the mouth, but it's the Archwell. Like, it's just, it just feels like the cat is about to have a hairball. It's bad. It's bad. So it doesn't matter what story they tell, because it doesn't feel right. And if I have your permission, I'll tell you about a Canadian tech company that I named.
I'd love to.
Okay,
I'd love to
so there's this beautiful tech company. They're creating this app where young people 18 to 30s can go online and they can connect with a mentor and ask questions. So they can inquire about these different careers to figure out what their path is. And my dear friend, she's a friend now, Rebecca, wanted to call it a variety of things. So they bought my book, they worked it out. They're a startup, right? So they can't pay my full fee. That's fine. I'm like, here's the book, do the work, and then bring me in as you need, and I'll advise you on a chunk. So she goes back, we're so excited, we found the name. Great, Rebecca, what is it? Be humble. What? Be humble. I said, tell me more. She goes, well, it's because you have to stumble before you become yourself. I'm like, yeah, good story, bad name. When you say be humble, you fall down, and you're about a brand that lifts people up. So we went with Inqli, INQLI, because Inkley, when you say it, like you can't help but feel happy. Inkley.
It's true.
Inkley,
What is that?
Inkley.
Why is that? Inkly.
Well, look at there's researchers who look at sound symbolism, and sound symbolism is around the world. We associate different sounds with different feelings, and it's probably how our brain has evolved over time. Like snap sounds like what it is, right? So there's what are called ideophones. I won't go too nerdy on this, but so Archewell doesn't sound like a generous, giving, loving, community building. It's got the wrong feels.
It does.
Got the wrong feels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, well, I just think, become, I mean, and it's sort of where's the emphasis anyway. And Archewell. So that was it. It was Archewell. And didn't they say it was to do with their name?
Well, they named their son, like, okay, my mother's British. She was like, Archie for their son. It's like, that's like in North America, that's, a comic book guy. And,
exactly.
Like there have been some Archibalds. Again, we got.
Well, I was thinking it should have been Archibald at least.
Look, and then there's been some heroes in the royal family. Lord Mountbatten was, or anyway, there's other heroes you could find in the family that have been good people. So we've got a bad name that they're starting with, and then we add well on it because we want that sense of depth and giving. You know what? Oh, like when you slam words together, like royal and luxury, Rolex, or microcomputer and software, Microsoft, like you can make some portmanteaus. That comes from the French word for two pieces of fabric making a bag. But anyway, you can make a name by bringing pieces together, but they gotta feel good in the mouth.
Yeah, they do. And there are some words, like you say, that are it's so deliciously delightful to say them.
Yeah.
And there are some that are so guttural, and that you have that sort of, what do they call it, like a glottal attack or whatever it's called. Yeah, and that's just awful to say. So that's well, it was so forgettable for me, which was the part. I knew it started with Arch something because I knew it was their son, and then I went, oh yeah, I forgot. And it was, look, I'm just a bit opposed to the whole, their whole arrangement. It seems very self-serving.
And that's a problem. What they needed to do is they needed to call it something like level up, or, join us to make a difference in the world. Like, yeah. So, they both need help with their personal brands and with their fundraising brand. But that's, those guys, I mean, look, that young man is, he's a trauma survivor. If his mother had worn a seatbelt, she'd still be here. So we also need to call it like it is, and not blame just the paparazzi. We need to not blame, but,
share responsibility.
Yeah. How about we need to share responsibility, and they need to have good people around them. And sometimes when you're in the midst of recovering from trauma, you're not very good at picking who to choose as an advisor. And I think that's part of the story there. But back to naming.
Yes.
They may end up renaming, and I hope they do, because they need a better story. And they certainly, they can leverage their profile for good if they're very, very careful.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's, they're unrescuable.
Right.
But yes, I do think they need to pivot. I hate that word, but pivot. Now, so let's think of, can you think of another one or two apart? Because, I mean, we've talked about, what was the other one that now it's Inkley. See, I remember Inkley.
Yeah.
I can't remember the other one. I had this sort of glottal attack thing. But okay, what's another one? Can you think of another one?
That I don't like?
Yes, the bad name, and why? As I said, I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
No, it's okay. I mean, I've renamed a bunch of things. So I renamed, it's interesting. I don't notice bad names per se, although I've been thinking I should have a contest every year. The worst name you've ever seen.
Oh, you should.
Yeah. And so, because sometimes people will send me things like, can you believe this? But, I'm always looking for what's good and why it's good.
Well, you know what? That's great sort of brand recognition for you, because that's why I thought of you immediately as soon as I heard the new brand name. I thought, I wonder what Louise thinks of that. I mean, I didn't think I liked it, but I needed to find out whether I should or not. Like, you know, I wanted to get that second opinion.
Well, if it fails the cat hairball test, you know it's not a good name.
I love that. I love that so much.
But you know,
right,
there's this.
one?
For people who are listening who are about to rename, and it's, you know, when you have to rename, because you can outgrow your name and it's very painful. Like your name no longer tells your story and you have to let it go and find something else. And to people listening, it's doable, you know, and in fact, if you get your next name, which suits you better, it will take you even farther than you thought possible.
Yes. Well, that's very true. Well, what about a good name? So you said, you know, you could understand a portmanteau. I can't ever pronounce that.
You did great.
Oh, thank you. When you, like the Microsoft were, what was it?
Microcomputer and software.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay, Microsoft. Yep, that makes sense. And iPad. Like, so there are some really great names. What are some other really great names where you've gone, man, they nailed that, and they didn't even need my help?
Well, Uber.
Okay, yeah. So see, that's such an abstract kind of name. Now it's. But what was so lovable about that?
Well, I'd have to get my own book up to look at the 5 reasons why that works, but I can remember a couple of them off the top of my head. So remember, like Apple was a name for a technology company. Virgin was, you know, entertainment, and then airlines. It's like, whoa, those are really breakout, disruptive names in their category. And we remember them because it's not another IBM. It's not another HP. It's a friggin' Apple. And we like apples. We feel good when we say Apple, right? Yes. And Virgin, well, that's just cheeky. So, you know.
That's so good, yeah.
Bring it on. So what was the question, darling?
Good names. Good names. I'm looking over your shoulder at the magazine Time and thinking, what a fantastic name for a magazine.
Yeah, well, yeah, that is, because that's a descriptive name because you're learning about what's happening in time. So there's many different kinds of name categories that work. You can, like I renamed an educational consultancy, and they were called the Learning Labyrinth, which just makes you sound like you're going to be, I know, lost. And these were 2 principals. They were brilliant. They were trained out of Harvard education, and they were going around the world teaching people how to be better principals and educators. Well, we ended up calling them Educa because it's the root of education, which is Latin for to bring forth. So you can using language in unique ways is like you can translate words. So Uber works. That's where we were. Uber works because it means, you know, the best of, but also when you say Uber, it's like the sound of a car. Like,
oh,
so
that's so true.
It's got what's called an audiophone. It's got the sound of the product embedded in the name. It's also short. There's a bunch of reasons why that name works, and they probably didn't even realize how many reasons there were for that name to work. And it was a really brave choice because you can imagine the boardroom. Really, we're going to call it that? Yeah, somebody said yes. Let's be brave, and that was a brilliant decision.
That's so true. And I mean, part of their business methodology was to become ubiquitous. And I suppose Uber meaning vast or enormous, that's probably in line with that. Like, we want it to be almost like if tissue were a brand name, tissue, the tissue, like, you know, we deal with all of that stuff. We own that, like Band-Aid, we own that space. It's true. It's really, really clever. All right. Okay. Now I know I've held you up for heaps. I just wanted to, talk to you forever. So if we were to put together a checklist, so I mean, obviously the first thing on your checklist, if you come up with a brand name, is buy your book. Which, can we just talk about your book quickly? Word Glue. Let's tell me. Now I know you've got another one coming up, but let's talk about Word Glue, which is winning awards everywhere. Let's talk about that.
I just won the 4th one a couple days ago. So yes, Word Glue, go to wordglue.co. It's the professionals naming handbook. So Word Glue, find your $1 million brand name. It's for professionals. So I wrote it for serial entrepreneurs, and it's what I call a tip, dip, and flip book. So you open it up, find the tip that you like, dip in and you can have name ideas in 10 minutes. So it's my master's is in adult ed. I'm trained in Harvard thinking routines, and I've got a background working in marketing. So and I've worked for Seth Godin for 3 years, who's a marketing genius.
Man,
So
yes.
all of my yummies are in this book for people who don't have access to an agency.
Fantastic. Okay, so step one, buy this book. So the links and everything will be here. So that's their first thing they have to do. Okay, so if we were to think of some other things to checklist, so when they've read your book, digested what you've shared, what's the next thing they should do? So if they were to do it like a 5-step process.
Yeah, well, there's actually there's 12 questions that I have in my book called the Q12, and they need to do what I call the Q12 because that will ask a series of questions to get at what matters about the brand. So who's it for? What's it for? What do you want people to feel? Who are the other people in your competitive space? What are they called? If you were an animal, what kind of animal would you be? Because you might name your brand like Red Bull. So, or if you were a mythical character. So all these kind of prompts, like Nike is named after the goddess of victory. So all these different prompts to get you really thinking about what words and phrases, feelings, colors, identities would matter to your brand. So they have to, so get the book, do the Q12. And then once they've got the foundation of core words that matter, they just flip through and do the exercises, and that will generate names. If they're doing it with a team, then you get it for the team, you save 4 weeks, just assume it's going to take up to 4 weeks to get a name that you can trademark in the countries where you want to serve. Please don't leave the name last, and don't use a placeholder name, because people will fall in love with the temporary name, and it'll be even harder to shift from that temporary name to what you should be, and you'll have people will be cranky.
Yeah. No, that's excellent advice. Okay, so we've got your book, we've read your book, we've gone through those 12 steps. We've allowed 4 weeks. Is that right? 4 weeks in the process. Then what?
Well, then you need to test your name in your marketplace. I mean, some people don't have time to read the book and go through all that, so they hire me and I come up with names and I make sure they're trademarkable. But
this is the either or, buy the book.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but if they're doing it, and I come from a do-it-yourself family, right? My father could, build buildings practically without a measuring tape. So I get the DIY thing. So yeah, buy the book, do the Q12, generate names, test the names that you will come up with a short list that are trademarkable, test those names. And then when you're ready to go, and then lock down all the social media, so that, you're not going to have some person who believes in the dinosaurs coming back, stealing your, hashtag or whatever social media, YouTube channel or what have you. So yeah, lock everything down. And then you want to launch. And what launching means is, in the book, I provide a brand roadmap. So I was inspired by Mike Moser, who wrote the book, United We Brand. And, I have been doing branding as well, but I've moved solely to naming because there's lots of really good brand people in this country. Australia is so good at branding. It's just a delight to see. But if you don't have, again, an agency, you can work with good designers if you give them a good brief. And that's a brand roadmap. So there's 7 questions that if you answer and present the answers to your designer, your website people, your logo generators, your press people, they will understand who you are as a brand and bring you to life more consistently.
Wow. Okay. That is a wealth of information and insight. Thank you so much, Louise. Honestly, that's so good. And now I've got, as I said, I'm going to have all the information about how we can get in touch with you. Actually, I should get all of those handles and everything to make sure that we do that, as well as the links to buy the book, because it's such a good book. But I also want to preface by saying, can we bring you back when you launched your next book, which you just mentioned quickly before about taglines? Do you want to give us a little bit of a
sure. I mean, do we talk about a project before it's live? So I am writing.
Well, yes. I don't want to give too much.
I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't want to jinx it. Or it's sort of like the baby's in the womb and you just don't want to say anything until it's past gestation, right? So, but I've got a good chunk of the book done, and this one is on taglines. because Nike would not be Nike without Just Do It.
Yeah, no, that's so true.
Yeah. And
so powerful and so important.
Yeah. And so, so writing taglines is hard, which means a lot of people aren't using them anymore, which is now an opportunity for you to find one that really works. So,
and you know what? I think you made such a good point about before. Rather than feeling constrained to change the name so that aligns with, so it's optimized for search, think of using your tagline as the vehicle to do that. I mean, such a good idea.
Yeah.
So that plus all these other incredible insights will be in that book, which we're not talking anymore about, but we're also wanting to stress the value and importance of taglines. Okay. So actually, a really important question, strap lines or taglines?
Well, I'm going to call them brand lines because what I'm talking about is like Dove, their soap, they've been using the same tagline or brand line for 100+ years. 99.4% pure.
Wow.
Coca-Cola used Open Happiness for 7 years. So I'm talking about the kind of Just Do It is Nike is going to use Just Do It until they can't.
Exactly.
Wheaties in the US, and they've got a Wheaties brand here, they've been using the phrase breakfast of champions for almost 100 years. So what I'm talking about is not a strap line for an ad or a campaign. It's what one phrase do you want associated with your brand for as long as possible. So I'm going to call it a brand line. And
nice.
I'm beginning to discover, both from looking at the research and just analyzing a lot of taglines, why some work and some don't.
Oh, I can't wait.
I know. It's like totally nerdy fabulousness.
Oh, it is totally.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, fabulous to talk to you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I promise you, I desperately want to get you back on and have a chat to you further about that next, and maybe some other questions that about naming a brand, because that's what you are like a standalone expert on. So thank you.
That's been fun.
And we'll speak to you soon.
Okay. Thanks, Beck. And thanks to all of you who listen. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye.